Good evening, everyone. Pray that everyone out there is doing well. Welcome to Let's Talk Maywood on Diversity Today Media. I am your host, Dr. Reggie Ratliff, and joining me tonight is my co-host, my co-laborer in the vineyard, and expert, licensed investment advisor, Terrence Hollingsworth. T Mac,
Yo, how's everybody doing?
We're chilling. How you doing?
Good. We're doing this heavy lifting in terms of, talking to legislators at this point, trying to make sure that, that we're getting what we need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's the work.
So you were out here in DC recently, right?
Yeah, I actually was there meeting with legislators at the same time that the monks were walking. And
Did you drive past them? And that's what they wanted to ride?
listen, I was actually in Congress, right? And we was in the Senate building, and I forgot that it was happening, but that's just kind of how it is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think they met with legislators after we were there, and so.
Well, that's good for them. They made the trek cross country, right? Then
they went from Texas to DC.
Okay. Yeah, some pit stops in between. Yeah, I think they stopped in Chicago, said hi, whatever. But there's a lot going on in politics, man. I mean, we see what's going on. You right in the trenches. So, what is something that stands out for you, and then how does it impact the village of Maywood in any form?
I think the most important thing that we can ever talk about is getting out to vote. And the reality of it is that all these things that come down through legislation is a function of, one, people getting out to vote and voting in people that have shared interests. But number two, engaging the politicians or the legislators, I should say, on issues that are important. So you hear, one of the things that was disappointing for me was Cory Booker introduced the idea of baby bonds.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't give Cory Booker the support that he deserved, being that he was a black man, he was coming from Stanford with a great education. He lived in the same community where it needed some rehab and stuff like this. He was able to get that done, and we didn't give him the support. One of his major ideas was baby bonds, right? Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? Trump took the idea and called them Trump investment accounts or something like this, right?
Yeah.
And that matters for every kid and grown person in the world. We have to align ourselves with investing. We know that AI is disrupting labor. And if we don't put politicians or legislators in place that's going to understand that we have to protect workers' rights as it relates to AI, then our communities are going to become devastated.
Yeah, indeed. Including in the village of Maywood, and we see what's going on there. We're going to have two guests on tonight, and they're going to talk about their candidacy as it relates to Maywood and Proviso Township and the 7th Congressional District. But in addition to that, this is Black History Month. We just got past Valentine's Day in the midst of Black History Month. And I just want to get your opinion real quick about how Donald Trump uninvited Maryland governor, that's more, to the governor's ball. Or the others. So what do you think about that?
I probably sound like a broken record, but somehow we didn't show up to vote, even though Donald Trump said he's going to do all of these things that he's doing. Yeah. And now we have to live with it, right? And so part of living with it is trying to make sure it doesn't happen again, right? Now, we know he's going out of office, but his ideas are going to remain. It has opened up a whirlwind of things of people that don't have our best interests at heart. So guess what? we need to get out, vote. We need to elect people that understands where we're headed as a country, and we need to make sure that we're investing in the stock market. We need to make sure that we are protecting Social Security, right? Social Security is supposed to be um, what is it? Social Security is expected to be insolvent by 2030, right?
Yep. Yep.
So that's a legislative thing,
Right.
right? That people have to get in there and make sure that it's properly funded. Maybe is privatizing Social Security the right thing to do? We need to have that conversation, but we also need to first have a conversation with ourselves, and then secondly, have conversations with our legislators.
Indeed. You keep mentioning voting, and I knock you saying get off, but this is important because it goes back to Maywood, the microcosm of what's going on in our country. Voting. I mean, we're going to have more than 1,000 people voting for the mayor election or any other seat, including this seat that's coming up during this election cycle, March 17th, I believe. But we don't vote. I mean, Black people don't vote. That's the bottom line. We don't. For whatever reason. I vote don't count as far as that big saying that. Not taking the time to do that. Not realize that impact legislation, policy, so I just want to know if you have any closing thoughts about that. Because Trustee Miguel Jones said the same thing. He said that. He's a regular guest in that podcast about getting out the vote.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm going to say is we need to organize well. And, I've been in the middle of, organizing. We take a group of people out, and they're younger people, and we go out and vote as a group. I host things at my house. So when you ask that question, we need to be willing to host house parties because the way that they think about organizing in the Black community is they want to show up to the most popular church that there is.
Right.
And I hate to say it, but the church is not leading community engagement in the way that it had in the civil rights movement.
Indeed. I mean, when you think about Second Baptist Church, the late pastor Sykes, Wallace Sykes, he was a civil rights activist. Think about the late, Bishop Clark Porter, for Proviso Baptist Church and Proviso Life Council for Community Action, also known as PLCCA, the movements that they made. The late, Pastor Wade, who came before Pastor Valley, Iraq of Ages Baptist Church, a whole host of people, whose names are called and not even, in the paper, in the Chicago Sun-Times or Chicago Defender back in the day. They led the charge. It was the young people that led the charge. For some reason, we aren't teaching that. Organizing, mobilizing, canvassing leads to voting. President Barack Obama was at the All-Star game recently. He recently spoke out about what's going on with Donald Trump and how important it is for us to mobilize and to organize and to strategize or any other eyes you want to put in there. But he created this plan and he implemented the plan. So I get off my bandwagon, but that's to your point. That's what we need to get back to do, grassroots level.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be quiet so we can welcome our guests, and more than anything, get registered to vote. Make sure you go vote. Pay attention to the SAVE Act, which is I think gonna limit people's ability to go vote, and let's get ready for November. Midterms elections are important.
Indeed. All right, brother. Catch you on the side. Very fruitful conversation always with Brother Terrence. But I want to introduce our guests for tonight. These are two important guests for the community, not just for the suburbs of Chicago, including Proviso Township, but the west side of Chicago, as well as the south parts of the south side of Chicago. So the first person I want to bring on is Dr. Mary May Larry. She is a candidate for the Illinois State Central Committee Person, 7th District of Illinois. So I'd like to bring on Dr. Larry.
Thank you so much,
Pleasure.
Dr. Ratliff. Oh
How you
my
doing tonight?
goodness. Let's talk Maywood. Oh, we
Indeed.
have you on
Yes,
this
indeed.
evening. And
Yes.
also the 7th district, because guess what? Maywood is housed within the 7th district. And I would be remiss if I didn't honor and recognize the co-host Terrence. Oh my goodness, I am so excited. And thank
Absolutely.
you for the invite. During this crucial election, I was waiting in the green room, and listen, I listened to you guys' conversation.
Hmm.
This is a crucial election. And listen, and we must mobilize and get out the vote. And I'm here today, and I'm so delighted with my colleague, Tim Thomas. I am Mary May Larry, and with your vote, the next state central commission committee person for the 7th district. I'm asking you to punch number 53. I have lived, just giving you a backdrop of who I am. I have lived within the 7th district for over 40 years and within Maywood, right at the same location during these 40 years. I have been indoors. You all know about Dr. Willie Wilson. And also, I have served as the formal village commissioner here within the village of Maywood. And also, I have served with COGIC, the Church of God in Christ Business and Professional Women Federation, locally as the president, and then worldwide as the vice president. So I have seen firsthand the inner working of various community. I have been afforded the opportunity to visit 40 states within the United States and on 5 continents. So therefore, I will fight for each of you. My important thing that I bring to the table, my spirit of servitude as a servant leader. Once again, I will fight for the people in the 7th district by holding these elected politicians accountable. I know somebody is saying to themselves, it is about time. One component of this position, we will be able to take an in-depth look at the various politicians that's in office and that will seek office. We will work with each elected official to listen, to reduce property tax. I was speaking this past Sunday, Dr. Ratliff, and I stated to the congregation, every year I pay over $10,000 so I can understand the plight in reference to the taxes here in the village of Maywood. And also, we're going to take a deep dive in looking into individuals that we could consider to run once we're elected into this office, who are community-minded individuals. And also, we'll take a look at increasing voter rights and voter giving them an opportunity to come out and vote rather, and also resources for our youth and our senior citizen. And finally, also increase job opportunities. If we can get the people employed, I believe we can have a better shot at these various communities, and then get these individuals into homes. Becoming homeowners. We're reminding you of this critical election before I turn it over to Dr. Ratliff. The elections, early voting in certain pockets have already begun, but in Proviso Township is on March 2nd, Monday, March 2nd through March 16th. And our dancing date, I often say, is March 17th. That is the election. Bring your neighbor, your friend out and ask them to vote. Mary May Larry, State Central Committee person for the 7th District, punch number 53. And my colleague, he'll be on shortly to ask you to punch number 54. Thank you so much, Dr. Ratliff.
My pleasure, Dr. Larry, as always, and thank you again for coming on to our podcast, joining us tonight. I want to ask you a quick question about Maywood before I bring on your partner, brother Tim Thomas. So, being part of Maywood for over 40 years,
Yeah.
it's not the same as when Mayor Freelon became the first Black mayor of Maywood in 1983, I believe. Mm-hmm. What has changed from your perspective as a business owner, as an educator, as someone who's well-traveled, well-versed in the community, well-versed, in the Church of God in Christ, well-versed in the community, even amongst politicians, community leaders throughout the decades in the village of Maywood? What have you seen overall that's different between then and now?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ratliff. Excellent question. And in reference to Dr. Freelon, back then, it's just my opinion, the politicians was personal and had a personal relationship with the various residents. I can recall, if I can just give you a backdrop, my life here within the village of Maywood, coming from a two-parent household, my father, a minister, and back then you didn't get money the way they give them now. They gave you food. It's 6 kids, so they gave you food. My dad worked for Brock's Candy Factory while my mom was basically a stay-at-home mom. But with that being said, I went to Mayor Freelon at that time, and I stated the case, just like I just stated to you guys. And I said, listen, I understand you're the first Black mayor in Maywood. I desire to go to college. I need you to send me to college. Matter of fact, that's what I stated to him. I said, my parents is not able to. And guess what he did? He stated to meet him at the bank. Remember, there was a bank where PLCCA is currently located. And met there, and he, along with the bank president, made sure I had the resources to go to college. That's number one. The politician had on hand with the different residents. And then there was jobs. Remember the can factory, right? So there was so many other entities in within this community. Back then, Maywood was a place of choice. When my family moved here in the early 70s, we was the only Black on our block, right? So it was a lot of engaging, networking, community outings, and all these things. So when we remove the businesses, then you have a problem, right? When we don't work hand in hand with the police force. And as you know, back when I was running for that particular race, I was the only candidate that was endorsed by the police union. Okay, so my thing is we have to get back, number one, to community, and then safety within the community, and the politician being able and willing to listen. That's what Tim and I bring to the table, being to listen and then to implement. After you listen, you implement change. And that's the difference now, the community as a whole.
Indeed. So you're talking about where the Canada Dry Places was that became eventually the Kroger Fulfillment Center, which is closed. Right. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But also PLCCA is located at the former Maywood Proviso Bank.
That's right. Correct.
Mayor Proviso, for which there was a baseball team that sponsored Little League Baseball at Maywood when we had Maywood Baseball back in the day.
Right. That's right.
The Central Area Park District. So.
And we had a pool too, a swimming pool.
Hampton Pool. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we had people like, the late Reverend Don Williams. Can't forget about him. And so many others. So many. It was definitely community. And I always see Mayor Freelon as the best mayor who ever.
Yes, me too. Me too.
Maywood ever. So we could talk about Maywood the entire podcast. Terry's like, bring on the next guest. Bring on the next guest. So I'm gonna bring on the next guest. The next guest, he's also no stranger to Maywood, although he holds a very important position in the village of Oak Park. He's also running for the Illinois State Central Committee position, 7th District of Illinois. His name is Mr. Tim Thomas. Mr. Thomas, good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me on the show.
Pleasure to have you, and thank you for taking time to join us on this podcast this evening. I'm going to ask you the same question, just introduce yourself to the audience. I'm going to introduce you to some and present you to others. So who is Tim Thomas, and what is your stance as it relates to their candidacy?
So I am a longtime union member. I'm an educator. I currently serve as Oak Park Township Supervisor. And for folks who don't know what that is or don't have townships in your area, We are human services, so everything from the Meals on Wheels that are delivered to protecting seniors and investigating senior abuse, case management for seniors, mental health in the community, as well as youth services. And so some of our programming happens inside the school system, as well as creating space for prevention programs at the township. As I said, I'm a longtime union member, so I have been Secretary, Treasurer, and Vice President of SEIU Healthcare, representing nursing home workers here in the state. And I have served as the Deputy National Political Director for the UAW. So if you remember when the UAW went through a little bit of a leadership change, as a reformer who worked on that, as well as one of the folks who helped work on the strike that we had the last couple of years. So that's just a little bit about me and kind of my background. I'm running for state central committeeman. What that is it's the board of the Democratic Party. And so there are 17 congressional seats. Each congressional seat gets 2 representatives. My colleague, Dr. Mary Larry, and myself are running for the 2 positions that represent the 7th congressional district. And this thing stretches from Maywood and Westchester, including parts of Elmwood Park, going out and picking up Grand Boulevard, parts of Chinatown, all the way up to the Loop. So it's a really unique and diverse district, and you want to have folks in that district who are just as unique and diverse as the people they want to represent.
Well said. I thank you for also identifying the geographic area. That's important because now you're talking about totally different socioeconomic communities. You know, you have one that's trying to build like in Austin. You have one predominantly African-American at this time, Maywood. You have one predominantly Hispanic, Melrose Park. And then you have the Loop. Are you speaking of the West Loop or the South Loop, Mr. Daly? Or is it just the entire Loop? The entire Loop?
So that's a good way to put it, because you do pick up parts of the South Side, South Loop area, but also the West Loop going up north. So kind of near north side. So you pick up, it's an interesting district to say the least, in how it's shaped and the different socioeconomic groups that are brought together in this district.
And that also does it include Inglewood as part of the 7th district?
Absolutely, it does. It
Wow.
does include Inglewood. So that's great that you asked that. You know, it's Armour Square and Fuller Park, parts of Humboldt Park, Garfield Park and West Garfield Park. So it's a very, very diverse district, not including it and we throw it west and we got parts of LaGrange Park and Hillside, Broadview, Forest Park, River Forest, quite a bit of proviso is picked up in this district.
How does one handle such a large territory as a 7th district committee?
You have to be committed to being friends with everybody and working with everybody, having no permanent friends, but always permanent issues. So I am friendly with everybody and want to be everybody's friend, but making sure that I am representing the needs of the people. And so that means you have to talk to every other elected official. You have to talk to the community activists. You have to engage the community where they're at and create forums for those folks to engage in the conversation and express what their needs are. And so that's kind of how I look at you touching this whole district, is just being willing to work with everybody in the district. So that's every committeeman, every elected official, every activist, and see where they're at in their effort to represent the community as well, making sure that those voices are heard in the Democratic Party.
My question for you, thank you for answering that. As it relates to the village of Maywood, do you see, as far as the village as a whole in totality, do you see any issues that stand out from the village of Maywood that may be different, or let's like similarities than other communities that will help build your case as a candidate to say these are issues in Maywood, lack of employment, poverty, crime, education? Like, is there a certain issue that stands out that is similar or different?
I'm gonna touch on 2 things, because it was interesting to hear you and Dr. Larry talk about the pool that used to be around and the baseball fields. I was literally reading a Facebook post earlier today that was some points of contention and dissatisfaction in the community, is that there's no longer a pool in Maywood, which is crazy, given the community and the demographics, that the baseball fields are unused. And so you hear that and you understand that as much change has happened, people are still dissatisfied. But as we look at the difference in the community, we still look at a place that is a food desert, which does not make sense, which is the exact same thing that we struggle with and have over in Austin and in other parts of the community in Inglewood, where we don't have fresh fruit, we don't have good grocery stores that provide all those things. And so, that's an issue. And so we have to begin to think about that. Looking at this position, this is a position that helps set policy. The Democratic Party, people don't know what it stands for anymore. What are we committed to doing? Are we committed to making sure that our priority for our community is ensuring that we have housing, ensuring that we have access to equitable resources to enjoy our outside spaces, ensuring that people have healthcare and the things that they need to thrive and survive, making sure that we're feeding the hungry and that we're taking care of the sick and looking after the poor. That's what you want in someone who's sitting in this position, someone who's recruiting candidates and shaping policies that are reflective of the needs of the community. Now, one of the questions that was asked, or I'm looking at, says, was this position help fund a pool in Maywood? No, it would not help fund a pool in Maywood. It would not help fund a pool anywhere. What you can do in positions like this is help create those policies that support candidates that will want to bring resources back. Make it a priority to fund our parks and fund our parks the right way so that we can make sure that pool is repaired and brought back to the community. Work within the Democratic Party, looking at the disparities that certain communities are getting and saying, hey, as the elected officials who we're supporting as party candidates, who we're helping get elected, you need to be laser focused on making sure our community has this, and making sure that is part of their platform and that is what they're going down their campaigning on when they make it to office, but then providing them the support from the 7th district to make sure that they can do it without the pushback, because they understand, and those who would push back to them understand, that this is what is wanted from the district and wanted from the voters.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because there would be pushback. So they all won't be on board. They have their own agendas, their own plans or whatever. And if it's not in line with what you're saying, you and Dr. Larry, not in line to what they're saying, there's going to be some pushback. That's, that I'm preaching to the choir. But I want to bring on Dr. Larry as well. So Terry, can you bring on Dr. Larry? Because this question is for both of you as it relates to the village of Maywood. And you probably know this as well, Mr. Thomas, being around Oak Park. Oak Park is only a couple villages from Maywood, So one thing that really disturbs me is the fact that we don't have baseball in Maywood, that the pool doesn't exist in Maywood, and Maywood being a food desert. I mean, I get that. Times have changed. Food is more expensive. Having a grocery store only carries like 1.7% of revenue in the village, typically. But you need some type of food, some type of structure, co-op or, whatever the case may be. Some other communities are doing this. But I guess my question is, as it relates to Mayor Booker, how would you work with him or communicate with him? Because I know he has some things he wants to do with the aquatic center. I haven't heard that much about baseball, but that's what made me and others who grew up in Maywood, baseball or girls softball, they softball leagues. We went to the pool, man, especially on the weekends. And then you had the baseball field at the same time that was ran by the Hildebrands and the branches and blocks and so forth and so on. How could you help or assist Maywood with turning that around for our children? Because there isn't much in Maywood. I don't care what social media says. Dr. Larry, you know this. Compared to when we were growing up, there were way more access to resources and activities for the youth as well as the seniors. So when they say something about everything going on, go to Bellwood to play baseball, that is criminal to even think that it's okay to go play baseball in Bellwood and call it Maywood Baseball League. That's crazy to me. So anyway, I give you the first chance to answer, Dr. Larry.
Excellent question again. And if we can revisit in reference to the pool, I know that Maywood was awarded $250,000 I believe it's at the end or during Mayor Perkins' time, but then it fell into the lap. I believe Mayor Booker, and forgive me if the dates are off, but Mayor Booker felt that it would be best to send it back and in hopes of getting $1 million. And sometimes a bird in the hand is better than
the bush.
And as a grant writer, that's number one. You never send any money back. You spend it down, right? So if they would have just fixed the foundation of the pool and then justified why you needed those additional funds, then I believe that the pool would have sustained itself, right? And I love the pool too. My son had a yearly summer feeding program because a lot of the kids, a lot of the people don't know when they're out of school, a lot of them don't have meals to eat. So my son in front of the pool under Mayor Perkins' administration would always be there every day except for Sunday, feeding the children. Everything was absolutely free, offering tutoring program, resume building, and all those good things. So if I can state what my colleague Tim has stated, this position do not afford the opportunity to make sure that Maywood get a pool, but we can network with Mayor Booker or any mayor across the line in finding resources and revenues and money. That's have always been my passion, is to get revenue and funding for entities. So we'll do that. And in reference to the grocery store, that's another one of my passion. Whenever you have a community that is a food desert, right? So you have to develop a type of working relationship, right? I had sought to have a co-op, and it's amazing you mentioned that, Dr. Ratliff, where the residents would have a buy-in, and I would propose that across the 7 district for those communities that is struggling, that have that food desert issue. And whereas the residents that have a buy-in, not the first or second or third year, but they'll see a return on those monies and on those funds. So it's back to you, Dr. Ratliff.
I'll pass it on to Mr. Thomas, please, if you would like to address any of those part of questions I had.
So for folks who don't know, I'm a teacher over at Proviso East, and I get to hear a lot of what the community is lacking from the students, because they talk about what they do on the weekends and the activities that aren't available. And it's interesting you talk about baseball and you mentioned the pool, when if we're looking at the city of Maywood in particular, you have city-owned parks and then you have park district-owned and operated parks. That doesn't make sense. They need to be one park district. One park district allows for you to ask for resources singularly instead of separately. It allows you to budget better, and it allows for them to answer the needs of the community. And so I think that's the first way you begin to solve this problem, is pushing for what the residents have asked for, one park district, so that then you can focus funding on putting back into community what folks really need. And then as we look at, I'm so sorry. As we look at food and the lack of food, every community needs food. I still remember when the Aldi's used to be right across the street from the high school, and now it's over there. It's like some blood donation place or plasma center. But that same Aldi's can open up just a few miles away over in Forest Park on Harlem. Make it make sense, because I actually used to drive to the Aldi's in Maywood and shop when I lived in Forest Park, and I had no problem getting there. Parking lot was easy. Everything was there. So there is opportunity. It has to be a focused opportunity. So there can, through partnership, I'm willing to work with everybody. I'm willing to work with any elected leader. I'm willing to work with Mayor Booker. Maybe through this position, this is the opportunity, because part of it is about raising money, that we do put together the big fundraiser to repair the pool or figure that out and start there. Maybe it is the infrastructure and support needed through this position to help solve the problem, because sometimes there has to be adults in the room to say, hey, the people need one park district so we can get our pool back together, so we can get baseball back in the community. I'm willing to sit in on that conversation and be the adult in the room and say, look, I'm not on either side, but the side of the people, and have that conversation. And I know Dr. Larry's willing to do that too. There's no dog in this fight except for the people's dog. And that's what we're fighting for, is to get what is best for the people. Far too many times there's an unheard majority. Listen to the people. They're talking. We're not listening.
Mr. Thomas, I'm glad you mentioned partnerships. I know there's been a lot of fighting and divisiveness in Maywood. I frankly don't care what people say about the working together part, because if there was cohesiveness, there will be continuity, and there will be, as you mentioned, Dr. Larry, a return on the investment. There will be no divisiveness. There will be a solution to a lack of a grocery store. There will be a solution to the lack of an aquatic center or Maywood baseball, Maywood baseball at the minor league level, the little league level, and a pony league level. There will be solutions. So I want to cater my question to two of you as a candidate. And what would you do if you were elected as it relates to the lack of employment opportunities within the village of Maywood? And I'm talking about the Kroger Fulfillment Center. You had Aldi's that closed. Now you have Kroger that closed. So there's really very little sustainability as it relates to employment. And that's 75 jobs that were lost, that's going to be lost as it relates to the Kroger Fulfillment Center. I know they had this plan to partner with Albertsons and, the merger, they want to become more e-commerce and all that. But because there's no strategic plan for the village of Maywood, we're back at square one. So how would you tackle those type of economic issues as it relates to the village of Maywood? Dr. Larry, I'll let you go first.
Thank you. Once again, excellent question. And once again, my whole thing and backdrop has been resume writing, resume building. You first have to give the kids and the young people, the young adults, the tools to work with, and then a partnership with the various business in Maywood. And it's very limited. It's just the truth. With our program, with my son program, he trained the kids, then get them placed. But we have to find a way, a meeting of the mind to make Maywood attractive enough, right? That the companies will come to Maywood and then they stay. I have seen even with Aldi's, once their time has spent down in reference to the taxes and it was time to pay the taxes, that's when Aldi's left. So if you're going to do a contract with the businesses that will one day come into Maywood, really be thorough with your contract and your preparation, right? To get the right people, the right fit for Maywood, and then begin to look at our downtown area to redevelop that.
Mr. Thomas, same question.
That's an interesting question to talk about jobs in the community. It's really about creating the atmosphere and helping support the current administration in supporting that atmosphere. In this role, I look at it as still an advocacy role and a policy role. And so part of that is looking at the tax incentives that we provide to businesses to come into our community and figure out how we make sure that, as Dr. Larry said, there is a true return on investment and that we're getting what we want. But what we should also be asking is looking at the businesses that we already have located in our community and in the immediate corridor, what their needs are. And by asking them their needs, we can begin to train to those needs. We have a wealth of great kids graduating. Many of them don't plan to go to college and they're going to need opportunities. But if they don't have the training to take advantage of those opportunities, you won't see them materialize and you won't see business to begin to relocate there. But I'll also circle back to what Dr. Ratliff said and think about like this. When you look at growing the community, adding grocery stores, adding jobs, and creating more opportunities, a strategic plan is helpful. There is enough people in this community who are educated, smart, capable, and competent who will do it for free because they are dedicated and love the community enough to sit down and to work with the administration to build out that strategic plan. They have ownership of that plan once they help build it, and they would have community buy-in to help begin to implement it. And that's what's important, is that you have that to bring those jobs back to the community and you create the space for those kids to stay here, work here, grow here, and retire here.
Absolutely. I love that because you're building, you're growing, and you go out there, become successful, and you pour it back into the community. You're giving back, whether it's through business or, as you say, as an educator, somebody who volunteers, who is part of the community. Just so many benefits in having that plan in place. But you mentioned something, Mr. Thomas. I know, Terry's like, wrap up. I'm trying, man. I'm trying. But these questions, they're answering so succinctly. I just got to ask one more question. All right. Relates to the stakeholders. We have the internal stakeholders, which is the community. We're talking about the constituents. We're talking about the people who are in positions of power, of authority. Now let's talk about the investors. You mentioned investors. If you were elected, would you reach out to investors, aka external stakeholders, who will pour into the community so it's sustainable? Because right now they're just focusing on taxes, which is a very important aspect of generating revenue. Okay. And then you got the money that's coming in from the casino. I get that. But let's think bigger picture, take a deeper dive. Is there a strategy that comes to mind as it relates to coming in and having it in perpetuity as it relates to external stakeholders, investors?
So yeah, look at the hospital. Look at the hospital that's right there. What ancillary or other services does the hospital need that could help generate more activity around the community? When you look at any business and there's manufacturing centers there are other businesses that need to develop to bring product that much closer and to support it. What other things does that hospital need that would allow it to grow or to provide more services to the community that creates sustainability there? And businesses begin to grow off of that, or opportunities begin to grow off of that. So that's one simple way to look at that. I know Amazon is not too far away. Again, that's another way to look at what other businesses are surrounding that one that will help grow and help pour back in the community and create a bit more sustainability where folks are able to live there for a long time and folks are able to have that money and have that opportunity to provide for their families. So I'd be looking at businesses that already exist and what they need to grow. Even the ones that are right around here, you got Berg Warner, which is over in Bellwood. Maybe they're looking to expand or looking to grow or change some of their business model. Can we have some of those suppliers located in the village of Maywood and some of the industrial corridors that feed into those other businesses and create and grow those opportunities?
That's a great point because I think Borg Warner is right on 25th Avenue, right there, 25th and Maywood Drive. So that's a great point. Same question with you, Dr. Larry, as it relates to sustainable revenue streams. The hospital closed. How do we get those revenues that we lost from closing the hospitals or bringing in stakeholders that will allow revenue to come in perpetuity?
Networking. Being the president of the Business and Professional Women Federation locally, and then the vice president, I often would tell the business owner it's about networking. When you start collaborative efforts, right, with the different stakeholders, and then they'll be willing to invest. But it's like anything, you have to be willing to sit down, listen, number one, and then network. And then I believe it'll be a productive, in reference to that. And then with Mr. Tim Thomas, because I know the porch light is on, Mr. Tim Thomas, along with yours truly, Mary McLary, punch number 53 and also 54, we're asking for opportunity to serve. We know what you rather what you have, right? But sometimes it's nothing wrong with doing like the Fortune 500 companies do. They get new people with new ideas, new thought pattern to move the needle in the direction that it needs to go. Something is wrong. We have to take a deep dive. For the president that we have now to be reelected, something is serious wrong, and there is a serious breakdown. Mr. Thomas, along with myself, is offering ourselves to serve the 7th district for free. We're not receiving one dime from this position. We're willing to network with the various leaders within the 7th district. We're willing to give individuals an opportunity within the 7th district willing to serve. So my thing is, this is a crucial election. We're asking you to come out and listen, call your neighbor, call your friends, ask them to come and vote. Mary May Larry for their 7th district. Listen, state central committee person. And then Mr. Thomas, just take a look right down and you'll see Mr. Tim Thomas and punch number 54. Remember punch number 53 and punch number 54. Thank you, Mr. Ratliff, for allowing us to be on. I have another engagement with the Business and Professional Women Federation all over the world. These is ladies from Africa and all these places. So I'm offering once again myself to you to serve. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you've been watching Let's Talk Maywood on Diversity Today Media. Mr. Thomas, I think Dr. Larry has to leave. But our illustrious mayor, the Honorable Mayor Katrina Thompson, who's right next door in Broadview, she asked the question as it relates to the entire 7th District. And since, I believe in the community activist John McKnight, where he says the community is built from the inside out. My community is Maywood and built from there. That's why this position is important as it relates to Maywood and beyond. So from a 7th District perspective, why do you believe that leadership is important for the entire 7th District, knowing that the Central Committee person represents more than just Maywood, but a community across the district? And I think you addressed this in the beginning, but if you could just kind of, lay a bit more groundwork as it relates to that question, I appreciate it. Mr. Thomas.
You want people who are willing to work with everybody. You want people who folks feel comfortable walking up to and who they want to work with. I've listened to folks in this race talk about they want to recruit community activists. They want to recruit union members and workers and educators. They want to recruit folks who are non-traditional candidates. Literally, I'm that person. I'm the non-traditional candidate. I'm the union member. Okay. I'm the teacher in the classroom. I'm the person who's just looking to give back to the community. Service leadership, as Dr. Mary May Larry had mentioned. This position should make folks feel welcomed in the party. This position creates space for everybody in the party and a willingness to talk to anybody, regardless of where they live in the community. What we don't want is what we have now, is that we have vertical leadership, where it is somebody who is already elected in this position. They already serve in a committeeman in this position, then they serve in that position, and it's just straight up and down. What we need to do and understand is that when you are in a battle trying to change something, you don't need just one soldier, you need a battlefield full of soldiers. And that's what you get, is you get soldiers with Mary and I, people who are willing to do the work, people who are willing to spread out the responsibility and work with everybody across the board. And so that includes elected, that includes activists. That's what's important. Go vote for Tim Thomas and Dr. Mary May Larry. Punch 43, punch 44 for Illinois 7th Congressional District State Central Committee person. We're committed to being fighters for you.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to thank you both, Mr. Tim Thomas, Dr. Mary May Larry, for joining us tonight. Surely you've shared a lot of knowledge that the community across the 7th District will be able to absorb. And when they make their decision at the poll, then they'll vote with their conscience and the community, and not just because they know someone.
Thank
so
you.
With that said, I'd like to thank everyone. Dr. Mary Larry is punch number 53. Mr. Tim Thomas is punch number 54, if you're so desired to vote in that direction. But we are a nonpartisan podcast. We bring in candidates from all different types of parties, regardless of their beliefs. We believe in being fair and equitable. However, it would be a disservice to not have someone who's connected to Maywood to speak on the Let's Talk Maywood podcast. And so until next time, please do us the favor and vote. Starts March 2nd, runs through March 16th, and then election day is March 17th. Get out there and vote, represent, and vote like your life depended on it. I am Dr. Reggie Ratliff. Tune in for our next podcast where we have our next guest. Like us on YouTube and subscribe on Facebook. Or did I say that backwards? Like us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. I'm not perfect, but be safe. God bless you. Vote, and good night.